Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. Time for DC Spotlight for the week of May 27th, 2026. Can't believe we're at the end of May already. Phoenix Comic
Crazy.
Con or Phoenix Fan Fusion right around the corner. I'm supposed to be doing 3 panels there. I haven't gotten any any news about like dates or times or anything, so I'm getting a little nervous about it. In a way, I'm almost like, well, maybe I'm not doing any panels this year. And if I'm not doing any panels, I don't have a pass to go to the show. I won't buy a pass, so I won't even go, which would be crazy. Um, but anyway, like I have so much else going on, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But traveling this week to Orlando, so still hope Spawn Daily will still be coming out. Everybody, I'm hoping to do some content from the hotel room. It won't have the same level of graphics or audio maybe that normal videos do. But Rocky and I are recording this on Monday night before I head out, so you'll still get your DC Spotlight fix. And that being said, a little bit of a bigger week. I think the second week in a row where we've had 13 books. Man, I really loved it when there was only 10. But that being said, I thought this was a really strong week. There were some prizes this week for me, books I enjoyed more than I expected to. There was probably only two that I thought were like kind of meh. They were my bottom two. My rank 13 and 12 were not ones I would care to read again, but everything else, that's usually how I end up doing. Like sometimes I just know, oh my God, this is number one, whatever. That wasn't this week. This week was, what would I like to reread the least? And now, what would I next like to reread the least? That's
Yeah.
just how I do it. But what was interesting was when I got down, like as I kept doing that, eliminating, and then when I got down to only one left, I was like, oh, this is my book of the week. This is the book I would like to reread the most. That was a bit of a surprise to me. So it's worthy of being my pick of the week. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed it. Um, but it was a little bit of a surprise. It's not one of these things like a book blew me away as my pick of the week. So kind of an interesting spot to be in. And the last thing I'll mention, hope everybody got a chance to pre-order Terminal from Robert Kirkman. People are comparing it to Invincible already, just in terms of scope and ambition. It's way too early to be doing that. But it is really interesting what Kirkman's doing. I've always said he's a big idea guy, Walking Dead, Invincible, what have you. But if you read those books as they were coming out, sometimes they felt like they were paced really slowly. I remember I used to wait like 3 months and build up 3 issues of Walking Dead, and then I'd read three at once. So I felt like I was getting a big chunk of story. Otherwise, it just felt too slow to me. But I think he has gotten better over the years with dialogue and pacing, because I thought Skinbreaker didn't have that problem that he did with David Finch. But that also might have been the fact that all of it was written and then Finch, maybe he changed the pacing around when he was drawing it. I don't know. That being said, Terminal isn't a situation where he has just one artist. He's got David Finch, he's got Andy Kubert, and he's got Arthur Adams. Arthur Adams doing interiors for the first time in a really long time. And you think, okay, well, those guys, they're all older and they're established, so maybe they're not as hungry. And that's why their stuff tends to be a little late. They're not killing themselves doing the all-nighters. And I'm glad they're not, because, that's not the healthiest choice. But with all three of them doing interiors, that gives everybody 3 months to do a book, like if you divide it up, right? So it's amazing what they're doing. The FOC was already this past Monday on the 25th, which I didn't realize it was so quick, because the book doesn't come out till July 22nd, which is the Wednesday the Comic-Con starts. And so I thought I had a little more time to cover it. But I put out a video. It explains everything that's going on, the 90s aesthetic they're going after, and specifically all the rare stuff. There's going to be a lot of really rare stuff in the blind bags. Normally I don't go in for blind bags at all. The current blind bag craze was actually started by Skybound, Battle Beast, #1. They did it. It was super successful. Now everybody's copying them. They're doing some stuff where some people are going to get books that nobody else has. We've seen in the past them do like, okay, maybe you're going to get issue 3 that nobody else is going to get for a couple months or what have you. So I say all that to say, hopefully you got a chance to pre-order. It's going to be fantastic. It's Terminal. Go watch the video on the YouTube channel. Check it out. So all that being said, Rocky, DC Spotlight this week. What do you think of the week overall?
It was okay. It was okay. Honestly, there was probably there was 7 that I really liked, and the other 6 I thought were kind of meh. Sort of mediocre. So, but again, it's still none of them. I can't say. Well, there was one there was I think 2 that I thought were not particularly good. One was just straight up awful. But all of them were decent. But, again, I find that it's really easy. To me, the cream is rising to the top. I find it really easy for me it's really easy for me because I'm very picky with my physical copies, and that's sort of what I like about reviewing these comics with you, because we have an advantage that we can basically pre-select in many ways ahead of time, and I feel very fortunate in that respect. And I still get to read the ones and enjoy the ones even if they don't make my physical pull list.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I don't feel anybody who's been watching for a while. This trend has really started to crystallize this year, where you have a real differentiation, which I think the phrase you've used time and again is good, not great. Like there's some, so it sounds like you have 2 that were bad or mediocre.
Yeah.
And then you have another 5 that were good, not great, and then you had 7 that you enjoyed that you would classify as great. Huh. That's the difference for me, because you are enjoying the absolute stuff so much more than me. So your high is higher than my high. Yeah. But it also seems like your low is lower than mine. Yeah. I'm a little more even killed on DC. I don't feel like anything is like super, super great. I mean, it's pretty rare for me to have something that really blows me away. Yeah. But my low is high. Like, I'm just more even, which I just find to be interesting. Like, it's very few times that I read these books and I go, oh man, that I would never want to read that again. Even here I said I have 2. Really, it's one that I would probably never read again. The other one I could see myself going back and checking out at some point if the series improves for me subjectively. So it's pretty interesting where we are currently. Yeah. But we're kicking it off with Batman 163. This is finally out. It's the end of the volume. It's Hush 2, Part 6, and there are just a myriad of problems that we could talk about here, right? Like, first of all, the lateness. This is coming out almost a year after it should have come out. And even saying that, when I say that, I'm like, okay, this is coming out a year after when I would have expected it to come out, which was already later than it should have. Right, because we've talked about this, the fact that they kicked Zdarsky off Batman in order to do Hush 2 in the regular Batman book. And I said at the time, people were like, oh, there's no way it's going to be on time or whatever. And I said at the time, I was like, I don't know how far Jim Lee is ahead on the art, but I would think that DC is going to do everything they can to have this come out on time, because DC is not going to have a month where a regular issue of Batman doesn't come out. So it turns out I was right and wrong. So if Jim Lee fell behind, and I'll talk about why that was, and again, it's not a surprise. He wasn't as far ahead, because here's the thing. They were going to start at a certain point, and they told Zdarsky, we're going to double ship your book. And then they said, oh, Jim needs more time. We're not going to double ship your book. So Chip had to do all this extra work to get everything in the can, and then it turns out they didn't need it, and it came out monthly. But his run was still truncated. But then what happened was Jim got sick. Jim had some health issues, which pushed things back further. And then it pushed it back into other obligations that Jim had for, like, the Superman film and family obligations with needing to travel for some of his kids getting married and grandkids being born, and they moved house, and there was a lot going on. Now, if he hadn't gotten sick, if he hadn't had the health issues, and don't get me wrong, I don't want Jim Lee to be pulling all-nighters. Like he thought he was maybe be able to do it, and then he tried, and it exacerbated the health issues he was having and whatever. It was bad. It was bad. And I don't blame Jim for prioritizing his health. But even had he not, I expected this to be late. I mean, we kind of all did. But on that note, that's why they started the Matt Fraction, Jorge Jimenez Batman early, and you had 2 volumes of Batman going on concurrently. So I was right in that DC wasn't going to let a month go by without a regular volume of Batman, issue of Batman being on the shelf. But it turned out it wasn't this one. So again, I don't begrudge Jim. I'm glad he's prioritizing his health and what have you. But this was robbed of any momentum it might have had by the lateness, right? That being on top of already the issues that we talked about, like, set aside all the lateness. Let's just talk about what this story is. And in anticipation of talking about this, so It finally came out this week. I'm reading it as part of our usual press release in the press portal we have and everything. I read it. I actually thought, man, this is some of the best art I've seen Jim Lee do in quite a while. I'm really enjoying it. The story, but the art I thought was a step above what he'd done in previous issues. But knowing I was going to talk about this and knowing the lateness, and it's kind of hard to remember what happened. So I went back, Rocky. I went back to issue 158, Hush 2, Part 1, and I read them all in succession, one after the other, after the other, after the other. So I can set aside any lateness. We know it was robbed of momentum. We know it says Hush on the cover. We know it says Jim Lee on the cover. We know it says Jeff Loeb on the cover. So it's going to sell. It's going to sell in trade. It's going to be an evergreen title. Whether or not it deserves to be up there with Hush #1 as an evergreen title. First of all, I think the first volume of Hush is a little overrated, but I do think it's great for somebody that wants to get into Batman comics because it touches on a bunch of his different rogues, whether that be Joker or Penguin or Poison Ivy or Superman makes an appearance, whatever, and it's great Jim Lee art. So I do think it's great for new comic readers. Is it a sophisticated story? Not necessarily. But set aside all that, right? Set aside any predictions I might have. Let's just talk about the story in and of itself, what we have here. The problems are still there, and they're glaring. So we're talking about...
I'm curious. Did you enjoy it more or less on a second read?
Well, that's what I'm gonna get into.
Oh,
so
okay.
the problems are, as I said, are glaring in terms of this feels like it takes place maybe 4 to 6 weeks after the end of Hush 2. So the characterization for the characters is wonky. We talked about it at the time. The characterization for Batman himself, he's wound way too tight. I don't care for it. Jason Todd, wildly out of character. Barbara Gordon, out of character. Dick Grayson, out of character. Damian, out of character. Like, it constantly pulls me out of the story. Like, the way that the infighting within the Batman family, just, there's no degree of verisimilitude at all. Like, the way that they treat each other, the way that they talk to each other, the things they do, just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. It just doesn't, right? On top of that, it's very choppy. And that, I think, is due to the fact that Jeff Loeb is trying to tell a story that honestly probably is going to need more than 12 issues of a comic. But, God, it's already been 2 years and we've only got 6 issues. On top of which, I talked about it at the time, you kick Chip Zdarsky off the book because you say it's got to be in the regular Batman title. But then right away the lateness starts. So then you say, okay, well, only the first 6 issues are going to be in Batman. And the second 6 issues, Hush 2 Part 2, is going to be its own standalone miniseries. God knows when that'll come out. Maybe it'll finish by like 2035. So you kicked Zdarsky off for no reason because the whole thing is not going to end up coming out. Like, you see the problems here, like, and again, I'm getting off of criticizing the story and talking like more publishing wise. But to get back to the story, yeah, it's choppy. That's the biggest thing I have about it. Like, even in this particular issue, the biggest thing that I had was, at the end of the last issue, which came out, 6 months ago, Batman kind of falls down this hole and the Joker's there waiting in the sewers for him. And then that's where this picks up. And there was a hint, if you would have remembered, because I certainly didn't, where the Riddler said in the last issue, kind of an offhand remark to Batman, you've got friends in low places. Turns out he was talking about these allies, like his rogues are actually allies, maybe kind of foreshadowing a little Absolute Batman here. And they supposedly are after Hush as well. They have a falling out. And so they go walking along the sewers with Batman. They leave Clayface behind. Clayface disguises himself as Batman and fights the other members of the Bat family. But they're going, and it's Bane that says something that basically the light bulb goes on for Batman. Oh, you guys are after Hush as well, and you're just using me as bait. And then one of the rogues, I can't remember which one, says, yeah, you can't tell me you wouldn't do the same thing. And then all of a sudden, Hush is just there. He just shows up. He's in the sewers also. Like, just choppy. It's so choppy. And even though I went back and did a reread, I didn't remember it didn't seem to be as choppy as I remembered it being. Like, I don't think there's any transition that's as bad as the one in this issue, actually, which is interesting because I kind of enjoyed this issue the most, but that had a lot to do with the art. But I was surprised, and I think this is the perception that I had for it because it took so long to come out, that this was a little bit more of a plodding story, that it was moving along kind of slowly, and it felt like it was losing momentum because of that. When actually, this is a really quick story. This is all taking place within like a 36-hour period from the time the Joker was dumping the fish into the Gotham Reservoir. If everybody can cast their minds back 2 years ago, that's how this story started. And then Hush capturing Joker, torturing him, Batman coming and rescuing him, taking him to Leslie Tompkins to be saved, Batman moving to the Batcave, Jason Todd coming, kidnapping the Joker, knocking Bruce out, working with Hush, and then Hush attacking the Bat family, and really Hush manipulating to get the Bat family to fight amongst themselves. It's actually a really fast story and not a lot to it. There's not a lot of meat on the bone here in terms of, substance over style. This is definitely more sizzle than steak, more style than substance. And if you're a Jim Lee art fan, which I enjoy, I'm actually more of a fan of Jim Lee's art now than I was back in the day. Like he wasn't one of my favorite artists back in the 90s or whatever. I know that's a little sacrilege, but that's just how it was. So it's interesting here seeing Batman, thrown into a Lazarus pit. Interesting enough. There are hints that Hush is not the big bad and there's someone else calling the shots or pulling the strings. And it seemed like we were going to get a reveal of that this issue. And then Talia shows up on a train. Yeah. And that felt kind of weird. And what? So I'm a little bit intrigued. I'm a little curious, but in the back of my mind, and again, I'm trying to separate all the publishing problems and all the lateness and all the scheduling snafus from the actual story. And I'm trying to just judge the story on its own merits. But it's so hard for me to be curious and to be interested when I'm like, but God knows when it hasn't been solicited, not even the first issue. And I'm fine with that if it means, hey, maybe you wait till Jim is done completely before so you can have all 6 issues come out at once. And then you could follow that up, the following week or, the following month with the trade. But I'm not privy to DC's plans. I don't know what they're doing. So is this story as bad as I thought it was and have thought it was all along while we were reviewing it? Now that I've read the first 6 issues all in one sitting, I'll say no. It's not as bad as I remembered it, but it has some glaring problems, and it is so hard to separate all of the lateness and all of the scheduling snafus and everything from the story itself. But objectively, it's weaker than Hush. It's not as bad as I remember, but I'm going to have to wait for the last 6 issues to really judge the story fully on its merits. I don't feel like 6 issues in, I can say, yes, you should read this. But the fact that I'm even considering having the ability to say, yeah, after all 12 issues of Hush 2, it's worth a read. I wouldn't have thought that would have been the case before this issue 163 came out. But it was the quality of the art in 163 and me not remembering enough of what had happened and going back, being willing to go back and read all 6 issues together in one sitting that has allowed me to say, yeah, maybe this is worth a read, which I didn't think I would have ever had been in that situation. So I will say that maybe this is worth a read. Maybe I'll recommend it, but it's too soon to say. And again, who knows at what point we'll ever get the ending of this. At the end of the day, this whole thing, Hush 2, has been a complete debacle, a black eye on DC, which, again, I get that Jim had issues, but that's why you shouldn't have announced it until he was done, because then he could have had the health issues and nobody would have been the wiser. Nobody would have been the wiser, and you could have waited till all 12 issues were in the can, or at least 8 of them or 9 of them. And then you could have released them, but you didn't do that. So pretty interesting. I will also say it didn't take me that long to read those 6 issues. These are not long reads, which is kind of typical of a Jeff Loeb, Jim Lee. But Hush is the first volume is not a long read. So in that way, it is a little more style than substance as well. But anyway, I know that I have. It's so hard. I mean, I'm so up in the air. Would I recommend this? Not necessarily. Is it bad? It's not as bad as I thought. Whatever. I'm like hemming and hawing here. I know I liked it better than Rocky. I ranked it higher than Rocky. This came in for me at number 10. So 2 books that I enjoyed less than this. But it ranked a little bit lower than that for Rocky.
Yeah,
Actually,
no,
I should say three books. There's 13 books this week. 3 books were lower than this.
yeah. No, I'm gonna be spoiler alert for my rankings. I put this dead last. I'm not gonna be as kind as you. I gave you an opportunity because you had the privilege. I use that word in quotations of rereading this. I refuse to reread this. I simply will not. Something that if I viscerally dislike and not enjoy something on the first read, I just can't bring myself to read it a second time. I just can't. And I would not do this for Batman Hush too. It's just not good enough. The art, of course, the art's fantastic. And I gotta say, my initial reaction is, you mean DC had a sick Jim Lee for all those months and all that bad press they got and all that bad press that Jim Lee got? It never occurred to DC to say, by the way, Jim Lee's sick? And he seemed to put out some other projects out there. So I'm actually questioning. I find myself questioning that PR. Was that a stunt? Was he really sick?
It's not a stunt. Jim Lee. Okay. Jim Lee posted on Instagram. He didn't post during because I mean that's private stuff. He didn't post during, but once he was on the other side of the crowd, he did post. I mean, this isn't news. Okay. So he did post it. He did put it out there.
If he did, then I have to apologize. I have to apologize because I've been very hard on Jim Lee, and I think many of us owe him an apology then, because I don't want to get down on a guy who's genuinely sick. I don't. I mean, so I feel compelled to apologize. But my cynicism, and you could tell just my cynicism about the whole thing. But nonetheless, I apologize. I fall upon my sword and apologize. I imagine Jeff Loeb. I figure when Jeff Loeb wrote this is my theory. He was sitting in front of a sandbox with a 4-year-old, and he threw a bunch of Batman action figures in the sandbox, and he took notes as the 4-year-old munched all the action figures together and made up a story, and in 10 minutes he had his story for Batman Hush 2. This is just an absolute gong show. It's comical. It's a beautifully illustrated mess. And it's happening real quick there's no way I'm buying the physical copies. Like, I'm done with this. I'm not giving this another 6 issues because this is just going to be more back and forth. I can't recommend this in good conscience to anybody. I can't. And the art does not save, this to me is an example of good art not saving a bad story. And that's what this is. And apologies to the creative team. Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee are legends, but sometimes collaborations just don't work. And for me, this is one where I feel quite confident saying, you know what, I'm out. And I'll just leave it at that. You
said plenty.
Wow.
You said plenty. Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I mean, disparage Jeff Loeb. Not everybody hits a home run every time, but yeah, a 4-year-old wrote this with action figures in the sandbox. That's quite the take. But what I will say is I find myself, like, I thought I was a Jeff Loeb fan, but I find myself disliking or not. I don't find myself invested in the stories that he tells most of the time. Yeah. Like you know how I am with Absolute Batman, where like I read it and I'm trying to figure out what everybody else sees in it. I'm kind of that same way with Jeff Loeb. He's done all these incredible things, Daredevil Yellow and Spider-Man Red and Captain America White and all those kind of things. The Long Halloween is another example. The one that they just redid as a tribute to Tim Sale. They're okay. They don't really speak to me the way a lot of people are like, oh my God, Jeff Loeb. So anyway, let's move on. We've spent a ton of time on a book that wasn't even in our top 5, but I think a lot of people kind of expected it. I mean,
it's newsworthy, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's been 2 years in the making.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, I wish, I'm curious enough. Maybe it's like watching a train wreck, right? Like you're fascinated, you can't turn away. Give me the last part of the story. I want to see is it really this bad? Or does it redeem itself? So anyway, let's move on. Up next, another book that is not in my top 5. It's Harley Quinn, number 62. The Hark Knight Returns. Elliot Kalan is the writer. Carlos Oliveras is the artist. Marisa Louise on colors. Lucas Gattoni on letters. This was okay. Comes in at number 9 for me. I do find this harsher, darker Harley Quinn to be interesting. The Carlos Oliveros art suits it, though I'm not a particular fan of his style. So yeah, it's okay. It's not terrible, but it's just okay. Anything to add, Rocky?
Yeah, I'll say this about Elliot Kalan. There are moments in here where, first of all, this was way too wordy. There's way too much exposition. But there were moments that were actually funny. There was like 2 or 3 moments that were actually very funny. So I can't deny that he's better at humor, but the setups are way too long getting there. And I have to say, and this is I'm going to just take one little observation with respect to the art. The layouts here, I just thought, I don't understand why the artist's choice and Oliveros, it's really odd. Every page, he's got 4 panels. Every page has 4 panels consisting of like rounded edges on one panel and square edges on the other. And I don't understand the reason why exactly. It just seems really odd.
The panels. So
like,
it's
what is that?
I thought it was mostly 6 panels on the left, 3 panels on the left.
Yeah, well,
3 panels on the right.
Yeah,
sometimes 4, sometimes 6. But yeah, basically the stuff with the rounded edges is the stuff that's happening in the television studio. So the rounded edges are supposed to be like television screen, right? Because the trucker. Can't remember what his name is. The trucker character. He's supposed. And you're right. There are some laugh out loud moments. Every time he tries to tell his origin, something interrupts it. But yeah, he's supposed to be there telling his origin when the guy backhand of all names for a villain, because his arms are on backwards, shows up and disrupts it, whatever. And all of that. They keep the cameras rolling, and so everything that happens on those panels that are on the left it's supposed to be. This is what, like, if you and I were sitting in our living room and happened to be tuned into this station. Yeah, maybe we should have our heads examined. But if we were, this is what we'd be seeing on the TV screen, and then the right with the squares, like what's happening in real time. So that's the difference. So. But the fact that you didn't pick up on that.
No, I didn't think it worked. I really don't think it worked. And plus, the colors in between those 2 panels from the left to the right. The coloring was the same and identical. There should have been some. It should have been done differently.
Yeah, the coloring throughout the series has been horrible.
Its color's been terrible in this issue. It just wasn't good at all. And Harley Quinn just isn't sexy. And I just don't like this iteration of Harley Quinn. At the end of the day, it's just not my cup of tea. I mean, but it has its moments. But this feels like Looney Tune. I'm not even sure if I could identify the audience that this is supposed to be for. But anyways, it's, what do I always
Harley Quinn on the cover, so it continues to sell. Yeah. which is unfortunate. But again, like, I really do think a different artist and a different color artist, because ever since Elliot Kalan has come on the book it's been way more enjoyable to me than the previous couple of runs. But
that's true. That's true. I agree.
It doesn't have the right artistic aesthetic.
Yeah,
and because it doesn't have either more of a DC House style, or go back a little bit more to an animated style, either one of those styles is going to need brighter colors. This has had a muted art style, like a pastel art style, throughout Elliot Kalan's run, and it sets the wrong tone for this book. So
straight up, 100% agree.
What's your ranking for it?
For this Harley Quinn, came in at number 12 for me, second last.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are we going in order? Is Superman 38 number 11? All right. Up next, Superman 38. Written by Joshua Williamson. Art by Dan Mora. Colors by Alejandro Sanchez. Letters by Ariana Mayer. I enjoyed this. It's in my top 5. It's in my top 3. Mm-hmm. I love giving Prime a love interest. I love leaning into Prime knowing what he knows, being a comic book fan, being from our world, and all that. And this leans into that while still feeling like a comic book. So I love Witchfire. She's a complicated character. That's touched on. The Dan Mora art is fantastic. Now, this is a little bit supernatural with Witchfire and some demons and Neron and Lord Satanus and Lady Satanus and what have you. So I get that it's colored a little darker because it's supernatural, what have you. But here I go again. I was just talking about Harley Quinn. I prefer the brighter colors. especially when it comes to a Superman comic. And for the most part, this has been that. But this one does take place at night. We are, traveling down into the bowels of this gothic nightclub. So I understand why it's cut a little bit darker. But again, I just prefer a brighter book when it comes um, to uh, to Prime taking over Superman's book. Now, all this happens, and that's sort of the main crux of the story. And then all of a sudden, in kind of this romantic moment, we're all in our feels. It's great. Like I said, Prime and Witchfire seem to have a mutual attraction and be great. And throughout, tongue in cheek, he's been like, she's like, you're such a good. I needed a good boy. I needed an innocent whatever. And he's like, oh man, it's not me. He's thinking back to all the terrible things he did. He's like, I killed all these lanterns and this and that, whatever. He kind of takes advantage while he's fighting Lord and Lady Zatanna. They're hoping to take over Earth and turn it into a new hell since Neuron's taken over hell. And Prime takes advantage of fighting this demon army to cut loose. He's like, I don't get to cut loose usually, because he can't do that against actual people. But if they're demons, whatever. I guess demon lives don't matter. To paraphrase a particular slogan. But anyway, they're in the fields, Witchfire and Prime, and all of a sudden Prime, he just disappears. He's just pulled through the page. And I'm like, and there's a voice, and it's in purple, and we're wondering who this is. And I'm like, is this going to be Joshua Williamson putting himself in the book? Like, what's going on? And this guy's talking about how Prime is special because he knows the secrets and what have you. He's from our world. No, it turns out it's Manchester Black. Now, why Manchester Black is meta, I don't necessarily know, but I'm okay with it. I think it works. I like that Manchester Black is trying to find a way back. In my head canon, I'm thinking, well, Manchester Black was so powerful mentally that he was aware, maybe aware because he had some sort of connection or established a connection to Superboy Prime, and so that's how he knows what he knows. But it's interesting, because Manchester Black is a good Superman villain. He's worthy of being in the Superman Rogues, and I get why he had to get killed off, even if I wasn't the biggest fan of it. It basically was PKJ having to do something to undo the secret identity of Superman being revealed, which Bendis did. Another one of the things I think that Bendis really got wrong. So I was okay with it. It needed to be something big in order for that identity to become secret again. But the fact that Williamson's bringing him back, I think, is a good thing. And when Prime sort of espouses this, hey, you're a bad guy. I'm not going to help you out. I don't know what the heck you're talking about. Why you think I would help you? I'm not that guy anymore. It's too dangerous for me to do what you're asking. Which Manchester Black is basically asking Superboy Prime to punch reality, as Superboy Prime has done in the past, in order for reality to change. And what Manchester Black wants is reality to change into a reality where he's not dead anymore. But Superboy Prime, again, it's his redemption arc. He talked about that several times. I think he even got Witchfire to say those words, and Manchester Black says those words as well. But Superboy Prime's not willing to do it, so Manchester Black, using his powers, is like, well, I'm going to shove you back into a place where you're going to have to. And the final page is Superboy Prime back in the time of Infinite Crisis. And he's like, not again. So it's a lot of fun. It was almost like two stories, if you will, because we had the main story with Witchfire, and it was fun and it was lighthearted, and you could tell Superboy Prime is really trying to do the right thing, and I really appreciate that. But then having this little epilogue with Superboy Prime being put back in his classic costume that he first made his first appearance, being back in that Infinite Crisis period. He's going to be more tempted than ever to fall back into his old habits. I'm very curious to see how Joshua Williamson is going to keep him on his redemption arc. And man, I mean, what a great time. If you had told me a year ago, hey, Superboy Prime is going to take over the Superman book and you're going to enjoy it, maybe even more than you enjoyed it when Superman was showing up. Because Rocky and I have both really loved Joshua Williamson's run. I think Joshua Williamson's run on Superman, notwithstanding when he's had to tie into other events, bigger company-wide events at DC, it's been his best work at DC, and it's not close. I mean, he some of the things on Flash he did I enjoyed. I think his Robin run was good. I think his Batman Robin was good, exploring that relationship between father and son. But nothing holds a candle to what he's done on this Superman book. I mean, it has been his best work. And so if you would have told me, a year ago, yeah, he's going to take Clark out of the book and he's going to put Superboy Prime in, and you're going to enjoy it as much or more, I'd have been like, "You're crazy! You're crazy!"
I wouldn't have
Even though
believed it.
even though I'm a big Superman Prime fan, but that's where I'm at. Like, I don't know that I want Superman to come. I mean, I want Superman back. Don't get me wrong, but can we just give Prime his own monthly book then? Because I want I want a Superboy Prime book written by Joshua Williamson that comes out every month. That's how much I've been enjoying this. So yeah, no brainer, top 3 for me. What are your thoughts on it, Rocky? What do you have to add?
Yeah, well, one extreme to the other on my rankings. Yeah, this was easily in my top 3 as well. It was just fantastic. You said it, Joshua Williamson continues to do just a stellar job. Superboy Prime is become one of my favorite characters at DC, which I love Superboy Prime when he was a good guy back in the original Crisis. I hated what happened to him in Infinite Crisis, but the whole turnabout. I never did buy that nonsense redemption arc that Jeff Johns put him through, because I still figured he was a villain. But I'm actually, I'm wrong. Why am I wrong? Because of great writing by Joshua Williamson. He convinced me to like Superboy Prime, which I would have told you was impossible. That's good writing, and that's spectacular writing. And Joshua Williamson, I agree, it's his best writing at DC to date, hands down. I like the ending here with Manchester Black. Certainly knows how to get into the head of Superboy Prime. The fact that he's going to make him relive or re-experience Infinite Crisis, and Infinite Crisis was what made me really hate what happened to Superboy Prime, and so I'm really curious about that. I love Witchfire. I love romance in superhero comics are pretty rare, and they're often at times problematic for some of the characters, especially the more popular ones like Superman and Spider-Man. But I love Wildfire, and I I love Superboy Prime's innocence. On the one hand, he's been a genocidal maniac. On the other hand, when it comes to love and affection, he's got an innocence about him that just plays so well with this kind of romance. And then Wildfire, you get a sense she's a little bit more on the naughty side, but she likes a cute guy when she sees one, and especially the cute guy in the comic book store who happens to be Superboy Prime. The way she sort of like stumbled upon it, and I like the turnabout here. I genuinely, and maybe it's because I let myself go so much into this story, I genuinely thought that Wildfire, I thought the jury was out in my mind that, geez, maybe she's going to be a villain. Well, now I feel like a fool. Of course, she's an innocent. She's far more innocent than I actually appreciated she would be. And what I really liked, I love a scene where she uses all her Wildfire magical powers and, really impresses. She gives Superboy Prime there, like, he's pretty shocked. He suddenly realizes, whoa, as he says, she's pretty hot. And so Superboy Prime might be innocent, but he's not that innocent that he can't recognize a hot woman. And there you go. And anyways, great moments in the series, and yeah, definitely in the top 3. This is an easy recommend. Just a great series overall, period.
Yeah, and there's some great cover. Like, I've been getting the cover behind Rocky. It's almost these Saturday Evening Post kind of inspired covers. Those are the ones that I've been getting for this run. I've really been enjoying them, but there's a lot of great covers. It's kind of hard to go wrong. I mean, obviously Dan Mora's regular cover, but seeing Torme doing those Saturday Evening Post ones is pretty interesting. I didn't really have anything to mention about any of the Harley Quinn covers, but I realized I forgot to talk about, it taken all this time for Batman 163 to come out, and, Rocky mentioning Jim Lee seemed to have time to do all these other things. I was like, well, he also had time to do like 75 covers for that 163. There's 2 different triptychs, so that's the equivalent of like 6 covers. And then there's a Gary Frank cover, there's a Gabriel Dell'Otto cover, and there's a Mikel Janin.
For Hush?
Yeah,
Are you talking about Batman Hush?
Hush? Yeah,
Hush
for
too,
Hush.
yeah.
And then Miko Suyin, also that's a ratio. So there's a ton of covers on that. Yeah, Harley, that one that's reminiscent of Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah,
is important as well. I try to talk about, like, I always forget sometimes. I get so into the story, I forget that I like to talk about the covers as we go along. So that being said, up next we have Green Lantern number 35. This is written by Jeremy Adams, art by Iguara and Montos, colors by Romulo Fajardo Jr., letters by Dave Sharp. This came in at number 6 for me. It's the first time I can remember that a Green Lantern book wasn't in my top 5. Um, and I just first of all, I thought the art by Montos and Iguara was only okay. I thought there were times where, particularly Kyle Rayner looked a little strange to me, and that kind of pulled me out of the story. So that's part of the reason that it didn't resonate with me. But um, it still advanced the story forward, both the Kyle Rayner and Odyssey storyline that's happening on Earth, and the Hal Jordan story that's happening out in space. Um, as far as covers go, there's a David Nakayama cover of Odyssey. I think it's her first solo cover, which was really, really great. But
Yeah.
again, I was just the art pulled me out of the story at various times, which was surprising for me because I've been a fan of Iguara in the past. He did a series for Image with Meredith Finch, which if that name sounds familiar, she did. She had a run on Wonder Woman with her husband David Finch, which was really, really good. And then with Iguara, she had a series that she did um, at uh, at Image called Rose, which I really, really enjoyed. That not a lot of people did, but I felt like that art in Rose is gorgeous, and I was like, wait, is this the same artist? Because it felt so different than the art on there. But maybe that's because of the Montos collaboration. I'm not really sure, but yeah, it wasn't my favorite art. But that cover, I'm picking up the. I usually buy the main cover, but for this one, I'm picking that David Nakayama cover. Odyssey just looks gorgeous in that cover. But
Yeah.
I don't really have anything else to add because it's not in my top 5.
Well,
So I'm not going to get too much into the story. But yeah, take it away, Rocky. Anything else that you want to?
yeah, I really. This came in at number 6 for me too, actually, and I will say that I really loved. I know nothing about Toby, the last boy on Earth. Obviously, if that's a character from DC lore, I was never really consciously aware of him.
I
But
think I looked him up last issue when he showed up. Toby Y2K. That
yeah,
last issue was his first appearance.
yeah, because but the origin, I mean, it's hilarious the fact that he's like both Hal and Jan, the Wonder Twin, they don't want to break the news to him that Earth is actually still around. His parents sent him off planet because to save him from the catastrophic consequences of Y2K. Because when 1999 switched to 2000, it was supposed to destroy the Earth, and so his father sent him to another planet as Earth was destroyed. Of course, Earth wasn't destroyed, and neither Hal or Jan want to break the news to him. And so this poor guy Toby went off to another part of the galaxy and became a bounty hunter. And anyways, I think that was absolutely hilarious. It was a laugh out loud moment for me, and it's just something Jeremy Adams. I mean, I could just see Jeremy Adams having a lot of fun writing that. But good job, Jeremy. That was hilarious. And of course, he betrays Hal and Green Lantern, and he betrays Hal and Jan, and ultimately. It looks like I'm not sure how it's going to resolve this. Part of this, Hal is still trying to get to the bottom of why he's in the Book of Oa, and while he's doing that, Kyle Rayner and Odyssey are having this sort of adventure on Earth, and she's got a Hollywood contract, and she's getting looked at by a dentist who's really an alien to work on her aesthetics as an actress for the role. And these are two very different storylines. So I'm not really sure if is Jeremy Adams. So that's one of the reasons why it fell out of my top 5. I'm not quite. They seem a little bit out of sync with each other, these stories. But I know Jeremy has some way of weaving it all together, and he's clearly having fun. So it was certainly near the top closer to the top 5, closest to the top 5 you can get actually. But it was still entertaining, and the art was a little bit off-putting at times, but not enough that it didn't take away my enjoyment of the comic.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's move on. Up next, we have Superman, Father of Tomorrow, number 1. This is from writer Kenny Porter. Art is by Danny Earls. Colors by Nick Filardi. Letters by Lucas Catoni. I did enjoy this. This is in my top 5, and I'll talk a little bit about why. But I want to give Rocky a chance to give his thoughts first.
Yeah. Well, I this wasn't in my top. This wasn't in my top five. It was. Yeah, it was in the middle of the pack for me, and uh, Kenny Porter is somebody who we've reviewed more than a few times. Kenny Porter's written stuff for DC, and he always seemed to be he always seems to be given assignments that were he sort of had to work his way up the ranks. And so I generally like Kenny Porter. I like his imagination. He's come up with some pretty decent stories, either in anthologies or other comics that I frankly just can't occur to doesn't occur to me right now. But it's I'm glad that he's getting this opportunity. This definitely feels like an Elseworlds tale, and it absolutely is. And I like the Danny Earls art. It was pretty decent. Having said that, it did feel extremely predictable. If you would have told me write a story where only Jor-El comes to Earth and his wife Laura and son Kal-El don't make it, don't survive Krypton, but Jor-El does and he comes to Earth, write me that story. I think most of these plot points I'd probably come up with. That's what surprises me, and I don't think it's because So it seemed a little bit predictable to me, and that was nothing. Really seems to be nothing surprised me in this. I mean, Jor-El comes to Earth. He does land in the same field. He meets Jonathan and Martha Kent. Jonathan's like a brother to him, so they become family. But he swears an oath he wants to follow the laws of Krypton, so he doesn't want to expose the Earth to his technology. So he keeps his genius and his superpowers secret because he comes to Earth as an adult male, obviously, adult Kryptonian. And ultimately, the one pivotal event that causes him to reconsider his stance on not introducing Earth to Kryptonian technology was Jonathan Kent dies, his brother, and he's unable to save him from something as simple as a heart attack. And he could easily have done that had he only shared his technology sooner, or if he'd only shared his technology. And so that causes him to realize that he can help the people of Earth, and he shouldn't hold back from trying to help these people when he's got the ability and the knowledge to do so. And along the way you get a because he's we're dealing with a Lois Lane is still a child here. We got General Lane. We got a very young Lois Lane. We got a young Lex Luthor who's inspired by this new Superman that appears in Metropolis, and you can kind of see that. You can kind of see the same similar players you do in the standard Superman mythology, and it's a nice Elseworlds tale. It's a nice Elseworlds tale. It's only book one. I'm not even sure if this is this 3 or 4 issue. Do you know how many this is going to be, Jace?
I think they've solicited 3 so
3?
far, but I don't
Yeah,
know that they.
I think
I
that's
don't know
about.
that that's. Yeah, I don't know that that's the final
Yeah,
amount. Actually, they've solicited 4.
yeah.
And let me go to 4. It doesn't say it's the last one, so it could keep going. But
Yeah. So I don't again this is enjoyable. I mean it's a good read, and it does I would certainly recommend it. Especially if people are if I mean Elseworld sales are great because they're self-contained. It's going to have an ending. And you're going to be rewarded with it. And DC's got a very good track record with Elseworlds. I'm glad they brought they brought the title back, really, the concept back, because DC's batting a pretty high good record of all their Elseworlds tales. Most of them have become over time evergreens, pretty much evergreen titles or one shots at a minimum, or trade paperbacks, as the case might be. So in any event, this was good. This was good, entertaining. I just thought it was a little bit predictable for me, but hey, there's a lot of narrative directions this can go before this story of Jor-El, Father of Tomorrow, or Father of Tomorrow can go. So, what are your thoughts?
yeah, I generally have enjoyed a lot of the things that Kenny Porter has done as well. Um, being that this is Elseworlds, didn't certainly didn't bother me or anything. I do tend to agree with you that when you talk about it's Jor-El coming to Earth rather than baby Kal-El, that this is sort of the way you would expect it to go. I also thought that the storytelling from Danny Earls visually was very, very good, but I didn't recognize this as Danny Earls art. I know Danny Earls as a cover artist, and I feel like I can recognize in Danny Earls cover because they're very composed, they're very clean, and this is not that. So his interior, it's almost like he has a very different style when he does interiors. A little more chaotic, a little less clean, but I still enjoyed it. The art is still great, and again, he has a strong sense of storytelling from panel to panel. But like nothing surprised me here in terms of what happened. A little bit reminiscent. I mean, Kenny Porter is of an age. He's a little bit younger than us, but not so much. So I'm sure he saw the 1978 Superman film. This is reminiscent of that, right? Where that's kind of the first hard lesson that Clark has to learn. As much as he has all these powers and he's unable to save Jonathan Kent when he has a heart attack out in the fields. And that's sort of the lesson that Jor-El is learning here, except for the fact that if he had shared his technology, and even in the hospital, when Jonathan is there immediately after he's had the heart attack, Jor-El starts to like mess with the equipment or whatever, and he's like, I could build a stasis thing to keep it. And the people are like, stop touching the equipment, kind of freaking out. And that's where he kind of learns the lesson. But it's I imagine it's going to follow some of the cliches and the tropes that we've seen in things like Star Trek and what have you, where hey, sharing technology with a society that's not necessarily ready for it or hasn't earned it by creating the technology themselves, it can lead to unintended consequences, if you will. But I'm going to enjoy seeing that story. It's a classic science fiction story, maybe a little cliched, but it's a classic science fiction story, and I'm going to enjoy seeing that within the confines of the DC universe, because there are a lot of familiar names here, as Rocky said, even though the timing might be a little different. It is a very young Lois Lane. It is a very young Lex Luthor. Harry Bendix, another familiar name that we from the Wildstorm universe, shows up as well for a panel before he gets killed, which I had never a fan of Harry Bendix, so I was fine with that or whatever. Yeah. But I mentioned that Harry Bendix coming over from the Wildstorm portion, but it's in solicits that the Wildcats are going to show up later as well. So I know Kenny Porter, a bit of a fan of the Wildstorm universe, so he's going to be incorporating that as well. Yeah, a lot of cool covers, kind of similar to that one there, kind of similar to what I was just saying about the Saturday Evening Post inspired variant covers for Superman. Here we have Superman Father of Tomorrow with one as well, kind of a Saturday Evening Post inspired, and that's a Riley Rosmo cover, Rocky.
Yeah, I know. He's got a couple of real good covers coming up. Like I've gotten more. I enjoy a lot of his cover work. He's actually very stylistic, and he should do more covers. Quite frankly, he's got some really good ones coming out, especially over the next few months.
Yeah, there's a Gabriel Hardman one as well that basically shows Krypton exploding. That's really cool. Also, it's very green. You'll look for the green Superman Father of Tomorrow cover when you're at a comic shop this Wednesday. You'll know. I'll just say green, and you'll know exactly which one it is because it's very, very green. All right, let's move on. Up next, we have a book that is in my top 3. I'm pretty sure. Let me double check as I say that. Now I'm doubting myself. Nope, it's in my top 3. Detective Comics number 1109. It's Flight Part 3. Tom Taylor's the writer. Mikel Janin on art and colors. And then we've got Wes Abbott handling the letters. So we were just talking about Joshua Williamson. He's got a long track record at DC. He's worked on various projects, but for me, his Superman work is his best work. You could say the same thing about Tom Taylor. He's got a long track record at DC. Knights of Steel and Injustice and the Deceased series that was kind of out of continuity. And obviously his Nightwing run, I think it won Eisner's, won at least a few Eisner's, but definitely was nominated. But set all that aside, without question for me, his run on Detective Comics has been his best work at DC. I absolutely love the sequence here. Last issue ended with Oliver Queen being pushed out of a skyscraper. I love the sequence with Queen saving himself. Batman looking on and could have stepped in at any time, we find out later. But I love the explanation. I love how formidable it makes Oliver Queen seem. I love the talk about how he's has surpassed just the average person in terms of his bone density and his musculature and all that. And it makes sense because of the things he's been through and the training he's done. and I loved it. I loved it because it elevates Oliver Queen, and it's something I think that not a lot of people would think about necessarily. We also get some clues that this Prion character maybe have been part of a bigger organization. Maybe think like Court of Owls type organization, because we find out that the little girl is at one point called Prion as well. And then I'm referencing the little girl that was at the grave of Prion a couple issues ago, and was the one that shoved Oliver Queen out the window. She turns out there's a lot more there than meets the eye. One thing I'm not clear on when we get to the end, because it starts with a flashback of Prion training in Wildcat's gym with Batman and Oliver Queen and Black Canary. But then when we get to the end of this particular issue, when that girl, she wants to take out Batman, but then Green Arrow shows up as well, and she's ordered to retreat, and she's like, I can take him on. And they're like, that's because you're young and you don't know better. You're not taking on, two Justice Leaguers. And they basically instruct her to go into the sewers, and she goes and knocks on this door, and a woman opens the door that looks exactly like Black Canary, Black Canary's old classic suit. And like, what's going on? Is this the organization that she's part of? And why does it appear to be an older Black Canary? Like, there's a mystery here. It was like a WTF moment. I was like, wait, what? What the heck is going on? I don't think that's Black Canary. I don't think Dinah's been keeping a secret from Oliver, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But like, what a great cliffhanger from Tom Taylor. And I'm a huge fan of Mikel Janin. He's in my top 5 favorite comic book artists of all time. I love his art. I know some people don't like it. They think it's overly clean. It looks kind of antiseptic or too sterile. But I enjoy it. I love his panel layouts. I love the dynamic way he lays out the panels. The dynamism of it is fantastic. So again, I'm a fan of his art. I think it's great here. He's doing his own coloring as well. I appreciate that. The only thing I don't like about the fact that he does his own coloring now is because that takes time. He's not penciling every issue. I mean, he wouldn't pencil every issue anyway, but maybe he's penciling a little bit less. We don't get his pencils as much because he has to take time to do the color work, but I'm okay with it because I appreciate his art, and he's I want DC to keep him happy because I love him on this book. So anyway, I'm really enjoying this. No brainer, top 3. I don't want to see Tom Taylor leave this book for a long, long time, because he is going back and telling classic stories that aren't, you don't, not that we don't read everything, but you don't have to read anything else to be reading and enjoying Detective Comics. And these feel sort of like they're timeless Batman stories. And I really, really appreciate that. So what are your thoughts on it, Rocky?
Yeah, I love this. I love the idea of introducing and of just basically sort of rewriting or retweaking Batman's early years of training with a young Black Canary and a young Green Arrow, with Wildcat in a Wildcat's gym in Gotham, and I love that, and it's revealed that there was this other person, Prion. And Prion may have had a daughter. Maybe is this mysterious young girl that's very good at martial arts and has perhaps some other type of power? Is this Prion? Is she related to Prion? She seems to, she was surprised that Batman mentioned Prion. She tries to kill Oliver Queen. She clearly is an assassin. So why was she killing Oliver Queen? What is she doing? Does she have an agenda to kill Black Canary, to kill Green Arrow, to kill, does she have an agenda? Is she trying maybe to, I don't know. I'm speculating. I'm spitballing here. I don't know. We don't know. And then you said at the end, you nailed it. For me, I was confused. What the hell? What are the odds of her wandering into Wildcat's gym and Black Canary's there? Well, obviously this can't possibly be Black Canary. This has to be something else. But exactly what is it? I guess we're going to have to wait and see. But I just love what Tom Taylor's doing here. He's the clean, crisp art, which I love. Mikel Janin. It's gorgeous art, and it pulls me right into the story. All the characters look gorgeous. I mean, they just the color, everything is. This is the best. This is the most enjoyable that Batman's been in so long, between what Matt Fraction's doing it in the pages of Batman and Tom Taylor in Detective Comics, and then Scott Snyder in Absolute Batman. Good grief, the only one that fails to make the grade. is Batman Hush 2, but fortunately we won't need to see that for a while. So it's okay, Jim. If you're not feeling good, don't worry about it. It's okay. Just rest. But in any event, this is a great comic. High recommend. High recommend. And I mean, I'm really curious. Is this a new martial artist? This young girl? Who is she? Who is she going to become? This is a way to garner interest in a brand new character, introducing her like this. Not like, for example, Red Canary. Remember how Red Canary was introduced? I mean, all of a sudden, that was pathetic. This is how you introduce a new character. I mean, this is well done, Tom Taylor. Very well done.
Yeah, she came across as Red Canary came across as such a Mary Sue also.
Yeah.
Because we were told she didn't have powers, but then she was like very formidable. There's a Gerald Peril variant cover that I really enjoyed. Yep, that's it right there. If you're watching this on YouTube in the middle, I already had pre-ordered the main cover, so I'm gonna have to decide. I'll wait when I get to my comic shop on Wednesday. Actually, I won't be at my comic shop on Wednesday. I'm gonna have to see if I can find a comic shop when I'm on the road. Probably won't be able to, but because sometimes on stuff like this, it's like, man, I really like that cover, but I wait till I see it in person, see if I want to spend the extra money. But anyway, let's move on. Up next, we have The Peril of the Brutal Dark, an Ezra Kane mystery. We're up to issue number 4. I've really, really, really been enjoying this series. That being said, this only came in at number 7 for me. But there's tons of action. The story's really starting to come together. Ezra Kane, we get to see him in action. This is probably the most action-packed issue of the series we've had so far. I've said the word action a lot, but I cannot stress how much action there is. The art is great. Breakneck pace from Chris Condon on the writing. This is really, really enjoyable. I think I'm going to have to buy the collected. I haven't been buying the singles of this, but I think I'm going to have to pick up the collected edition because it's just that good. But I think it made your top 5, Rocky, so give us your thoughts.
Yes, it did. It did. It came in, and I'll say it came in at number 4 for me, just outside my top 3. No, I enjoyed this, and I will say this about what Chris Condon's done here. In many ways, this is whenever if you mention crime noir and 1930s and 40s, and it's in New York City or wherever, you're right away going to think Nazi conspiracy, you're going to think private detective, you're going to think all that jazz. What I like about this is that we get a little bit of mythology with this anvil, we get some Nazism, Nazis which were, of course, secretly planning World War II to take over the world and corrupting America from within. And then we got your classic, you got your femme fatales, you got your great characterization, you got the cops, you got coppers, you got the mafia, you got a little bit of everything, and in this issue, all of this is really starting to come together. The last 3 issues, in many ways, were a really good setup. Chris Condon did just such a really great job taking his time to tell the story, and what I like about it is that he's not rushed. There's an entire sequence here of just Ezra Kane, literally just, chasing a car down. And it's just, I like the fact that he's not afraid to sort of sit back and let the artist, I guess, Jacob Phillips, just work his magic in just telling this story. And because the art is what sets the tone and the mood of this tale, and it just works so well. And I'm really curious because he seems to be, there seems to be almost like a robotic mechanical person who is sort of protecting the secrets of this anvil, or this anvil of Hephaestus that was sort of stolen from this museum. And the guy that works at the museum gets a hold of Ezra and tells him, look, when you first talked to me, I lied to you. The fact is I'm here under duress. I want to make sure my wife's safe, et cetera, et cetera. All of this stuff is really building to a head here. Ezra, the lead character, Ezra Kane, he's badly hurt. He's badly injured. It's hilarious because he calls a reporter, and the reporter's done her own investigating, and she informs him about other Nazi connections, and he's all the dots are connected in this issue in so many ways, and of course he's almost overwhelmed, but he has the crap beat that he's had these crap beat out of him, so he's got to go to the hospital, and even the doctor is familiar with Ezra Kane, because apparently this isn't the first time that Ezra has suddenly appeared before him badly injured and won't admit himself to the hospital because of course he can't, because the police are looking for him, and it almost seems like another thing that Ezra got himself in trouble with. But the doctor is obviously a friend of his, so gives him a shot of morphine or whatever the hell he needs, some sort of painkiller, and then pushes him on his way as he ultimately goes and he confronts them, this Huber character and tells that he knows all about the secret Nazi invasion. And when I say it that way, secret Nazi invasion, it might sound a little bit cliche, but it's not, because if you follow the story, it's been building slowly to this, and you feel the frustration and the anger that Ezra Kane feels, and that's what works so well. Chris Condon does a really good job here of sort of pulling the reader into the story, and yeah, it just works. And I got to say, Chris Condon also wrote the first issue of Marvel.
Ultimate Impact Reborn.
Ultimate Impact Reborn. I finally read it. It's the opening issue. I thought it was very accessible. I've been reading the Ultimate line, and just for what it's worth, I will admit I was pulled in by the character work, which really was shocking, because I'm not looking for more new characters at Marvel. But I gotta admit, got my attention. It was enough there to whet my appetite that I'm going to be sticking with it to see where it goes. So, and I shouldn't be surprised, because if he can impress me with a brand new character like Ezra Kane, why can't he impress me with 3 or 4 new characters over at Marvel?
Yeah, if you're curious about that Ultimate Impact Reborn, you can head over to the Comic Source YouTube channel for my review on it. And yeah, it was the character work 100%. And you don't have to have read any of the previous Ultimate Universe stuff that Hickman started with Ultimate Spider-Man or what have you. You could go into it cold. It tells you everything you need to know. I don't know that I gave the credits for Peril, the Brutal Dark, and Ezra Kane Mystery 4. So yes, Chris Condon, writer, Jacob Phillips, artist, including the colors, and then Hassan Otsman Elhel handling the letters. All right, up next, we've got Absolute Wonder Woman, Season of the Witch, Part 5 of 5. Kelly Thompson's the writer. Hayden Sherman is the artist. This makes my top 5. It comes in at number 4 for me. I have a feeling it's in Rocky's top 3. I have a feeling Rocky enjoyed it more than me, so I'm going to let him do the majority of the talking about it. I may have some stuff to add at the end, but I will say the reason I put it in my top 4 more than anything is, first of all, Hayden Sherman just continues to impress me with his artwork. He has grown so much just since the beginning of the series, I feel like. His art has improved so much, his storytelling, everything. The other thing is, one of the things that struck me, like the thought that I kept having and what I was kind of ruminating on after I finished reading this, is the consistency of the storytelling, the consistency of the characterization that Kelly Thompson is giving us. You can kind of separate Absolute Batman, Absolute Superman, and Absolute Wonder Woman, the first 3, the Trinity, from the rest of the Absolute content that's come out. Because these were the first 3. These were the 3 titles that launched the Absolute Universe. And it makes sense. This is the Holy Trinity when it comes to DC. The 3 biggest characters in terms of how well known they are. Whether or not they're the 3 highest selling characters is neither here nor there. These are the 3 characters that really drive a lot of the narrative over at DC. More so than any other title of those 3, Absolute Wonder Woman has had the most consistency in terms of storytelling, in terms of personality, of who Diana is. So in a way, Kelly Thompson has just been telling one big story throughout and hasn't deviated through that. And normally when that's the case, I'd be bored by now, but I'm not. I'm more invested than ever. You could say Jason Aaron, it's been sort of 2 acts so far. That first act with Superman sort of establishing himself and then revealing himself to the world. Now he's at a point where the majority of the world knows who he is. He's public. He's wearing a costume now, and we're sort of in the midst of the second act. For Absolute Batman, Bruce has been, for lack of a better term, emo at times. He's been all over the place, with his anger and whatever, and that's just who he is. I think Scott Snyder has shown Bruce's impetuousness and his anger and whatever. And so it's been sort of an up and down. And then obviously I have my own kind of issues with it. But it's very much a horror story, and sometimes it's focused more on Bruce. Sometimes it's focused more on the particular villains. But even so, that book feels more like an ensemble a lot of times, because there are new first appearances in every single issue, and it is focusing on all these other people. The Joker sometimes seems like more the main character, Jack Grimm, than Batman himself. That has not been the case with Absolute Wonder Woman. It has been so consistent throughout, and I think it's actually underrated. I think not enough people, and even I, because Superman is my favorite character, and Absolute Superman is my favorite absolute title. But even I have to admit, how much I'm drawn in to Absolute Wonder Woman. And objectively, I think Absolute Wonder Woman, despite my own, predilection to liking Absolute Superman best, I think objectively that Absolute Wonder Woman might be the highest quality of the Absolute titles because of that consistency. So anyway, it was something I was thinking about after I finished reading this, because issue in and issue out, it's exciting. The art is fantastic. The story moves forward, and we're getting all that here. Wonder Woman being tortured and all that. But yeah, I'll let Rocky get into all that. But man, what a great issue.
Yeah.
Just missed out on my top 3. Came in at number 4 for me. So
yeah, well, it did make my top 3. And, it's funny. This was, I thoroughly enjoyed this issue. And I will actually say that probably out of all the first 20 issues, this is issue 20, out of all the 20 issues, I would probably say this is probably the one where this one was one where I thought, was actually a little bit more on the mess side compared to the other 19, the previous 19 issues. But for all the right reasons, because I got to tell you, what I love this was, to me, for this issue, this is the way I felt about this issue. I felt that Kelly Thompson said, okay, this is a very basic issue, Hayden Sherman, work your magic. And Hayden Sherman did precisely that. What I love about, Hayden is, again, his layouts are just absolutely fantastic. Wonder Woman is defeated. She's defeated, and she's taken into by Veronica Cale to Area 41, where she is tortured. And the art is just incredible, and what Kelly Thompson does masterfully for Wonder Woman is just the language and the inner voice that she gives Diana. Diana is being tortured, and Hayden Sherman, you can see the horrific pain, the torture that Wonder Woman is going through, and meanwhile, while she's in between her screaming because she's being tortured, she's thinking about she needs to get out to help people. She needs to get out to help Barbara Minerva, because Barbara, she knows, was captured. And Hayden Sherman does such a great job. You can feel the intensity as Veronica Cale, the heartless, psychopathic indifferent Veronica Cale, turning, amping up the levels to the, black level, whatever that is, but you know that it ain't good. You know that it's above level 1. And you can just see the heartlessness of Veronica Cale, how much she hates Wonder Woman. Meanwhile, Kelly Thompson, I mean, you said before how it's just one long story. Kelly Thompson understands her story better, understands the story she's telling better than anyone else. And that's saying something, because here's a news flash for people who don't read a lot of comics. A lot of times the writers forget the story they write by the time they get to the 20th issue. Not Kelly Thompson. And she understands. And the callback to the curse that was laid upon Wonder Woman by Hades when she left Hell. She's got to go back to Hell for 1 month every year. And of course, that's what happens here. It's time for Wonder Woman to spend a month in Hell, because that's the punishment. For 30 days every year, she has to go back to Hell, whether she likes it or not. That's the price she paid for having basically defied the gods in the first place by coming to man's world, and in order to defeat the monsters at the very beginning of Absolute Wonder Woman. And in conjunction with that, we have Persephone confronting Hades and telling Hades, whispering something to Hades, and she convinces Hades to do something, to maybe cut Wonder Woman some slack, or maybe she convinces Hades. I think she convinces Hades. We don't know what. She whispers something to him by basically telling him that, I think she's trying to tell him, look, there's something off about this world. And maybe it's going to have to do with the omega particles or something. But clearly, I'm not sure exactly what was said because it's not clear. But I'm just then we have this giant fist that comes and drags Wonder Woman down to hell, and Wonder Woman doesn't want to go because she needs to stay there. She wants to get out of the trap. She wants to rescue Barbara Minerva, and already you see that through no fault of Wonder Woman, she escapes but she doesn't want to escape. She wants to stay there because she needs to rescue Barbara, because Barbara is also likely going to be tortured, and we can all guess might be made into the new Cheetah. But already you see that Barbara Minerva, you can see the machinations coming into play, why Barbara might blame Wonder Woman for what happens to her, because Wonder Woman's going to be gone for a whole month, and a lot of torturous things can happen to Barbara in Area 51 over 30 days, where Wonder Woman's not there to help her. And in the meantime, what did Persephone whisper to Hades? What's going on? I love the fact that Wonder Woman's relationship with her gods is such that this Wonder Woman, she does hold the gods accountable, and she makes the gods themselves rethink their positions because of her wisdom, because of Wonder Woman's love and mercy. When she can challenge the gods with her thinking, by simply having a conversation with them, that's extraordinary. And then when she can set an example for the gods through her actions, that's incredible. And that's a consistency that frankly, I don't think we see much of in mainstream Wonder Woman. But that's a topic for another day. I'm not going to rant about that. All I know is I don't need mainstream Wonder Woman when I get Wonder Woman written this beautifully in absolute Wonder Woman. Kelly Thompson, thank you. Hayden Sherman, fantastic. This is just a really wonderful issue. This is a reward. Every time I read an issue of Absolute Wonder Woman, I feel rewarded. I feel rewarded for staying with it for 19 issues. Of course, I wanted to because it's that good. And I'm telling you, this is a story that like I said, it's easily in my top 3 this week. And again, this just keeps getting better and better. And just as a quick aside, I wonder, there was a debate in some circles about whether or not DC should DC just continue to slowly pump out the trades and the hardcover, then the trade, and then wait 2 or 3 years or 5 or 10 years before they make Absolute Wonder Woman and the Absolute titles compact titles? Some people are arguing that they should put out the compact titles right away for the Absolute titles to even draw more of an audience in. And I'm inclined to almost think that might be a good idea. Economically, is that a good idea for DC? I don't know. But in any event, I just want more people to read Absolute Wonder Woman, because I think they would be as impressed as all of us. Because like you said, Jace, you yourself, and I was cynical even after the first issue, but boy, I sure
I
come
remember.
around.
I was gonna call you out. Yeah, the first, you it might have been even the first couple issues before it started coalescing for you.
Absolutely.
Pretty interesting. I've gone on record. I talked about this the last time that we reviewed Tom King rather's Wonder Woman, and I've talked about it when it comes to the character. Like, the whole God aspect bores me to tears. And that's my own personal thing. I talked about having to take Greek mythology in college and disliking it or whatever. But, here, you kind of touched on it. The way that Kelly Thompson has framed this version of Wonder Woman's relationship with the gods, whether it be Hecate or Persephone or Hades or whomever. We haven't seen Ares show up yet. I imagine Absolute Ares is going to be a sight to behold. Mm-hmm. But regardless, it's framed differently, and despite the kind of the fierce independence that the Amazons have in the mainstream DCU, and Wonder Woman, Princess Diana is no exception to that. There's always this sense, even when she's standing up to Zeus or whomever it might be. There's always this sense, even if it's subtextual, that the Amazons are in some way beholden to the gods in the mainstream DCU. You don't get any of that at all in the Absolute universe. It's almost like this version of Wonder Woman sees herself as an equal, even when she's praying to Hecate or being deferential to Hades in a way, or Persephone, or whomever. Um, it's like, yes, you're a god, so I might owe you something, but I know my own value, and I'm not less than because of the fact that I'm not a god or whatever, and I'm only a demigod, which is it's a different feel, it's a different dynamic than in the main DCU, and I think that's one of the things I like about Absolute Wonder Woman more than the mainstream Wonder Woman, because I was one of my early critiques on Absolute Wonder Woman was how I felt like she, more so than Absolute Superman or Absolute Batman, felt the most like her mainstream counterpart. As the story's gone on, as we've traveled through these first 20 issues, the differences have become, they're more subtle perhaps, but they
Yeah.
are there, and they've become more apparent. So,
Yeah.
all right. Up next, I'm going to let Rocky do the majority talking about this one as well, because this is one of the ones that I just really did not enjoy that much. It's Zatanna #2, art and cover by Jamal Campbell, letters by Ariana Mayer. Jamal handles his own colors as well. I should mention for Absolute Wonder Woman before we move on, there's a Clayton Crane variant that's pretty cool, and a Terry Dodson variant that's pretty cool. I don't know if Rocky, yeah, Clayton Crane there in the middle. Don't have the Dodson one up, but anyway, back to Zatanna. I'm finding that I don't really care much for the voice that Jamal Campbell is giving Zatanna. It doesn't feel like the voice of Zatanna that I've gotten used to over the years. And there's just a disconnect there for me. I mean, Zatanna, clearly one of Jamal Campbell's favorite characters, but he hasn't done a ton of writing. And so I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not, or if just he's getting her voice exactly as he wants it, and this is just who he sees Zatanna as. But for me, there's a disconnect there. Also, typically, I love Jamal Campbell's art, but for whatever reason, and maybe it's the added workload of writing and illustrating the book, I don't feel like his art is as sharp as it normally is. There's particularly a double-page spread that's kind of at the climax of the story, where I just felt like the line work wasn't up to and it is a lot of panels and it is a complicated page, but normally I feel like Jamal's breezes through that stuff, and that wasn't the case this time. So this is probably my least favorite of the Next Level so far. The Zatanna title, it's just not working for me. His 6-issue mini that he did with Zatanna, I thought was only okay. I did appreciate that Blue Devil was in it. Blue Devil's one of my favorite underused characters, and so I think I was a little more forgiving of it for that reason. And at times the art is gorgeous. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Jamal Campbell art on even when it's not up to his usual standards, is still better than 90% of the artists out there. But for me, yeah, this is only okay. But I will say, every one of the covers is a banger. Jamal Campbell's main cover, which is behind Rocky. There's a Guillaume March cover, which is behind me, and then there's a David Talaski that we're not showing, but there's an Adam Hughes, which is the one that I ordered, because even though I haven't necessarily been enjoying these, I sure enjoy me some Adam Hughes Zatanna covers. So yeah, it was a bit of a cover buy for me to get issue 2 from Adam Hughes. And that David Teleski one that we're not showing is gorgeous as well. But yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed. I want to like this more than I do, but it's just not clicking for me. So anyway, it's in your top 5, Rocky. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just maybe I'm seeing something that's not there, or maybe I'm excited for something that I'm hoping I'm going to see. I think what I'm about to say is going to be happening, but I could be wrong. This is what I think is being set up here, and this is why I enjoy this so much. I think he understands. I think he's got a very clear vision of the Zatanna that in his own headcanon. And I like the voice he's given Zatanna. And to be honest with you, I don't have a preconceived notion of a voice for Zatanna because as much as I love the character and I got a lot of covers of her over the years, I've not read enough. I don't know if I've ever read enough or if there's even been enough Zatanna stories. I even read Paul Dini's Zatanna series. I got that entire series. I loved it. But I don't think that her voice here is demonstrably different that I recall that one being. But honestly, I'd have to go back. That's a long time. That's a while ago. But with Zatanna being the prime magus. She's basically going from realm to realm, and this issue opens up with her solving basically a crisis in a particular magical realm. And so I see her in many ways. It's a little bit like I feel like it's combining elements of Constantine and Aquaman. Aquaman is controller of the blue, and Aquaman now has a lighthouse in different parts of the galaxy with the blue, and Zatanna now is the prime magus, and she's going around and she's dealing with magical problems at various parts probably throughout the universe because she's like the ultimate magician now, the ultimate magic user. And while at the same time she's solving problems and making deals and making side deals and arrangements, which reminds me a little bit of Constantine, minus... Well, she's even a little bit sarcastic. Zatanna has a sense of humor, and I think that Jamal Campbell is giving her a sense of humor, and she even explains her magic and how she's using it. I even like this new character, who is still a mystery, this Agent Domains, or is it pronounced Domain? Where he's got he's got a weird mask. It's revealed that he's not of Earth. He's an alien. He referred to, when he was talking to Director Bones, he referred to Earth as like you people or your people. And so it suggests that perhaps he's an alien. He's a magical wielder in his own right, I think. At the end of this issue has to do with Zatanna is trying to deal with the spirit there was a spiritual muse. There was this singer that died that was sort of like a centuries old singer in a centuries old quiet village in the south of France. Her name was Clara Dubois, and she had a wonderful voice, and a spirit fell in love with her voice. But when Clara died, the spirit seemed to become evil and haunted and was doing terrible things. And so Zatanna's dealing with that spirit. And the Department of Metahuman Affairs, or the Department of, I guess, Metaphysical Affairs, which is ran by Director Bones and, pardon me, it's the Department of Extranormal Operations in Washington, D.C., otherwise known as the Mundane. They also end up trying to address this threat. And I gotta admit, I'm a little bit confused. You talk about that double parade spread at the end that you thought was a little off. I thought it was really good. I loved it. I love that you see this beautiful Zatanna recruits the voice of another ghost that has a beautiful singing voice to try to attract this spiritual muse, and in between the musical notes, you could see Zatanna trying to talk backwards and use her magic. And then you have this Agent Domains trying. It looks like when he speaks, he instead of speaking backwards, whenever he speaks or something, it seems all his words are blotted out. I don't understand quite what's going on. I don't understand why, was it because the music was so loud they couldn't hear each other talk? Why exactly are some of the some of the words, all of them blotted out? I'm not quite clear on that. Mind you, I didn't understand the panels in the other comic. Maybe you have some insights on that, Jace, but I didn't quite understand what the power. There seems to be some. I think. I don't know what's going on, but it's clear to me that at least I'm assuming Jamal Campbell is imposing some structure and a little bit of chaotic structure on his visual portrayal of magic and magical interaction. And while I don't understand it, Well, isn't that what magic is? I'm a little bit more forgiving if I'm looking at a magical. This magic is happening in this scene, and I don't understand it. But I don't understand whenever I watch a magician. By definition, I don't understand what a magician's doing because that's why it fools me. So I'm cutting this a little bit of slack because I find the visuals very beautiful. And in any event, I like the mystery here, and I think it's very creative. And this is just a beautiful comic, and this really in many ways read like a magical symphony on the page to me. And so I'm singing the praises here. I just really enjoyed this, and plus I have a bias. I'm a Purian fanboy. Jamal Campbell gives, I said it before, I'll say it again, he gives Zatanna a pretty nice booty, and that puts a smile on my face too. So there you have it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you're enjoying it. I just, yeah, there's a disconnect there for me. I'm not sure exactly what it is. So, anyway, moving on. Up next, we have Justice League Unlimited number 19. This is written by Mark Waid. Dan Mora is the artist. Tamara Bonvillain on colors. Ariana Mayer on letters. This did not come into my top 5. I ranked it at number 8, but I did appreciate this Amnesty Part 1 that Mark Waid is referencing the blowback once Lex Luthor kind of let the cat out of the bag last issue that members of the DCKO tournament were getting amnesty, and the world reacts the way that you would reacts the way you would expect them to react. And so I appreciated that. The Dan Mora art's fantastic. There's tons of action. And then at the end, we get a hint that the Brainiac Queen is coming back, which is going to be part of this amnesty storyline as well, that's been teased and press released about and what have you. So continue to enjoy what Mark Waid is doing. I continue to recommend Justice League Unlimited as a book where you can kind of catch up on the bigger goings on of the connectivity tissue of the DC universe overall. Anything to add, Rocky?
Yeah, I would. I ranked this really low for me. I put this way back down to number 11, just because I just don't feel like not a lot has happened. In many ways, this feels like setup just to establish that there's beginning. Not only is the world rightly so questioning the Justice League. I mean, nothing. I don't care what anybody says. What the Justice League is doing, they simply don't have the authority to create amnesty. They have no legal authority at all. They can't impose amnesty. They have no legal authority. So and that's not addressed here. So the world has every right to be upset. And the very first opening page is former Commissioner Gordon, who's now just a beat cop in Gotham because Commissioner Savage is Vandal Savage is the commissioner. He screams at Batman, "Have you lost your mind?" And I'm pretty sure most of the readership agrees with Gordon. Hey, yeah, have you lost your mind? What are you doing? But you understand why the Justice League's doing it. And I get it. And it's fun. We're all in on it. But it is causing dissension amongst even members of the Justice League. And even some of the villains are questioning it. Like, well, we shouldn't have maybe have, there's a perception amongst the Justice League Unlimited that this was a decision unilaterally made by Batman and Wonder Woman and more of the more important members, and it's creating some dissension here. And I'm wondering if maybe the seeds are planted for maybe a little bit of a protest, or I like that it's creating that dissension, or at least hints of it, because I think moving forward that might come back to haunt the powers that be here as this series moves forward. Clearly, Mark Waid's planting seeds, and as he said at the end here with the Brainiac Queen coming back, and Brainiac Queen says, "Where's my mother?" And Jace, we all know who the Brainiac Queen's mother is. It's your favorite character, Amanda Waller. So you have a lot to look forward to in this.
Well, I was hoping that maybe this is not the Brainiac Queen. I was hoping that maybe this character that's showing up here is some sort of offshoot. And when she's saying, "Where's my mother?" she's referring to the Brainiac Queen herself. Yeah. Is what I'm hoping.
Could be.
Is what I'm hoping. And that this is not the actual Brainiac Queen. Because, yeah, I mean, it has been a while. That's why food tastes better. And the air smells sweeter.
Because Amanda Waller's not around.
Because Amanda Waller hasn't been around. I didn't even realize. And talk about everything's been going so great lately, and I didn't realize it. I was taking it for granted, damn it.
Yeah.
All right. Up next, we have The Flash number 33. This is Speed Was Power and the Speed Was Joy, Part 3. Written by Ryan North, illustrated by Gavin Guidry, colored by Ariana Mayer, letters by Buddy Bedoin. This is in my top 3. I really enjoyed it. What's interesting, we're 3 issues into the Ryan North run here, and this is kind of the end of the story. It's part 3. So I guess we're going to get 2 3-part stories of the first 6 issues. It's kind of refreshing to not always be on that 6-issue cadence. But this is in my top 3. I really enjoyed it. I was a little surprised, Rocky, that it wasn't in your top 5. So give us your thoughts.
Oh, I really don't have much to say. I honestly thought that this was, a little bit underwhelming and a little bit. I don't know. I thought it was a little bit surprising and a little bit. I don't want to be too harsh. It was. Let me start with the strengths. I really love the family. Ryan North understands Wally West, and then I love the way he draws the way that he scripts Wally and Linda and the family, and the way they communicate so well. And there's love there. I really love it. Those are the most heartfelt moments. And this is one, I'm still buying the physical copies of The Flash. And I got to say, all the positive things I've heard about Ryan North's Fantastic Four, although I've heard some people say some negative things about it. I mean, the Fantastic Four, which I've not read Ryan North's Fantastic Four, but they're the first family of the Marvel Universe. I know that. If his scripting of the Fantastic Four is even 10% of is his ability to grasp just the scripting here and the voice of Wally, I mean, that's one of the reasons why at some point I will probably end up getting some trades and reading his Fantastic Four run. But it was a nice resolution to this. I thought it was a very convenient resolution. I thought it wrapped up a little bit too conveniently. I didn't know if I quite bought it. It was kind of there was even a joke that was kind of a James Bond plot. The guy wants to basically blow up, make all the gold radioactive, like a plot out of a James Bond movie. But it did kind of work. It kind of worked, and it was, and I really loved the rapport between not Mr. Freeze. Captain Cold. Captain Cold and Wally. There's some really great moments between them, and so I guess it had its moments. I just thought it was, and by the way, it was pretty close. It was closer to the top than the bottom for me. It just never made my top 5, but it didn't mean I didn't enjoy it. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Did you say, was that 7 or 11?
I put it, no, for me, this came in right in the middle of the pack for me, actually right at number 8 for me.
Oh, number 8. Okay. Oh, yeah, I was thinking of Justice League Unlimited was at 11 for you. Okay, got it. Yeah. This is in my top 3. So I was reading Ryan, I gave Ryan North's Fantastic Four. I think I read the first 3 or 4 issues.
Yeah.
It just didn't resonate for me. It just didn't do it. But I did really enjoy his crypto story, and then I've really been digging his Flash run. No secret that I thought the idea of what he came up with these people trying to get a bunch of money by, having the Flash rescue them and whoever could have the best video or whatever. I thought that was brilliant because it was such an interesting idea that was really hard to solve. I love the voice. I talked about the voice that Jamal Campbell's giving Zatanna, and it not matching up with the voice that I have for Zatanna in my head. As opposed to Ryan North here, the voice he's giving Wally West matches up exactly to the voice that I've got in my head. And maybe I bumped it up a little bit because Wally West gives one of the best dad jokes, one of the most classic, when one of his kids, I think it's Irie, says that she's hungry. Yeah. And he says, "Hi, hungry, I'm dad." And it's just fantastic. And she groans about it, and he talks about how they'll have so many years of enjoying that joke over and over and over. She's like, "Oh, it never stops being hilarious." He's like, "Great, because we're going to continue." This is Wally West as a family man, and what I love about what we have here is it completely makes sense. The interactions between Captain Cold and everything, they have a high degree of verisimilitude as well, because the Rogues are such. There's a reason they're such popular villains with fans, right? Is because they're not the Joker, they're not psychopaths, they're not out there killing. They just kind of want to take easy street. They want the money. They don't want to work a 9 to 5. And so you can kind of understand why, Wally would be willing to work with Captain Cold. It certainly works out. Their banter back and forth is great. Them defusing the bomb, all of that. There's tension, there's action, what have you. And in it, if things had turned out differently, there's an Elseworlds. I guess we could think of it that way, or an Earth out there in the infinite Earths of the DC universe where Flash fights right along the Rogues, and the Rogues are all heroes, right? Because you get that sense. So I think Ryan North nails that here very, very well, along with getting Wally's personality right, whether it be when he's out fighting crime and diffusing nuclear bombs, or when he's at home with the family and what have you. But what I love about what Ryan North does here, it's almost like a 3-act story all within one issue. We get the resolution of what's going on with the bomb. We find out why it was happening. We meet the guy behind it who doesn't seem to be. He mentions he's got friends in high places. So maybe that's the other 3 issues. Maybe this is not the end of the story. It only seems like it. I postulated last time, wouldn't it be great to have Maxwell Lord show up?
Yeah.
He's been, Maxwell, I wouldn't put him in any particular hero's rogues gallery. I don't think he's had enough interactions between any particular heroes where it's like, okay, you can say he's a Superman villain, or he's a Batman villain, or a Wonder Woman villain. I think people have tried to steer him more toward a Wonder Woman villain just because we have that history of Wonder Woman snapping his neck. But it just seems like with what was going on here, with wanting to destabilize the world economy and irradiate this gold and what have you, that it would make sense. That seems like a Maxwell Lord thing to do. So maybe that's still coming. That would be interesting. But getting back to what I was saying about having the resolution of that story, and then we have a little interlude with family time with Wally, which is, I want that in a Wally West Flash comic because that's part of who Wally is, and I love that. I appreciate that. And then we have Wally exploring a new power. It happened in the first issue, this flashes of insight thing, and Ryan North touched on it and what have you. I love the explanation, how he's able to start using it. He talks about, a muscle that you don't first realize how you can utilize it or use it or whatever, and he goes out and he's running at super speed and he figures it out, and he's able to kind of control it. I think a little be careful what you wish for, Wally West, but at the same time, it opens up tons of potential for storytelling. So for me, there's nothing not to like about this issue of Flash, and that's why it's in my top 3, and I really, really enjoyed it. I did not expect to enjoy this run of Flash as much as I'm enjoying it, mostly because the Ryan North Fantastic Four book didn't connect with me. Maybe I should have given more credence to how much I enjoyed his crypto story. But I'm just really impressed with what Ryan North has given us here. So this was a no-brainer in my top 3.
What I find funny about it, just a quick thing, I found this humorous. I got the impression that when Wally West can access his powers, just when he flexes his chest, because I've been working out, so I can flex I flex my chest now, and my 11-year-old daughter, she laughs at me when I do that, and so I that's what I thought of when Wally's working out, so Wally flexes his muscles, now he flexes his muscles at the right time. Now he can see the future. I think part of me just chuckles at that, is because it's such a guy masculine, almost cliche thing to do. It's like, oh yeah, just gonna don't mind me, I'm just gonna flex a little bit here, and oh, I see the future now.
Yeah, thank God Ryan North did not go down that path. That would have been super cringy.
Yeah.
Thank God he didn't go. But at the same time, I think it would have been like a riot. If it was more of a humor title, I could have seen him go down that path. But anyway, up next we have Gotham Academy, first year, number 4. This is from Brendan Fletcher, Becky Cloonan, and Carl Kerschel. As those are listed as the story by. And we have script by Brendan Fletcher, art by Marco Ferrara, colors by Ava Dela Cruz, and letters by Steve Wands. I got to be honest, I forgot this title existed. I don't know what the delay was necessarily. And I realized we forgot to talk about covers for regular Flash. And that's because there's nothing that really stands out. There's a Junibaugh Flash fact one that looks a little bit interesting, but nothing really stands out. Maybe if you're a Captain Cold fan, that John Timms cover you might be interested in. But anyway, getting back to Gotham Academy, I I forgot this was coming out. Did we skip a month?
I,
Um,
I I don't know, but it feels like it's been 6 months since or even
okay,
longer since we
so
read the last issue.
I'm looking at the release dates. 1 was in October, 2 was in November, 3 was in December.
Yeah,
So we went January, February, March, April. We went 4 months.
yeah,
We went 4 months without an issue of Gotham Academy. So I can be forgiven, I guess, for forgetting that this was coming out.
yeah,
Now, that being said, I was enjoying this series,
yeah,
even though I don't have context because I didn't read any previous volumes of Gotham Academy. And this is a prequel. That's why it's first year. So that being said, there was enough here that I remembered kind of what was going on in the first 3 issues.
yeah.
I didn't go back and reread them. But also I don't have the context for who Olive Silverlock is from reading other Gotham Academy information. So I felt a little bit lost. And I don't know, for me, like I thought it was a month or two. Turns out it's 4 months. That, I mean, was Jim Lee's health issues? Like, I don't know. I want to use the word inexcusable, but I don't know. Maybe something happened with Marco Ferrara where he couldn't draw it, or maybe something with other creative team. So I don't want to say say inexcusable because there could be a legitimate excuse, but I'll just say it's extremely unfortunate for a book to miss 4 months.
Yeah.
And I feel like you have to find a way for that not to happen, because there was a little bit momentum. I was getting interested, but now I sort of don't care. And again, so much I think happens in this issue that calls back to previous volumes of Gotham Academy. And Rocky, I think, can correct me if I'm wrong because I think he's read previous volumes. But I just felt lost, partially because of the missing those 4 months, and partially because I haven't read the stuff. So for all those reasons, I ranked this at number 11 for me, very very low. So.
Yeah, in fairness, one of the yes, it's terrible that this got delayed. But the story was good enough for me that I actually, it surprised me how much I remembered. In fact, you don't really need to know previous volumes of Gotham Academy. You really just need to know the previous 3 issues. And I thought this issue was actually, I guess for myself, but I think it's because I remember the previous 3 issues, which is something because I usually forget it. And so the fact that I remembered it tells me that I enjoyed the previous 3 issues. And basically, this is just a quick over. Olive Silverlock, it was basically, she was an orphan she was rescued her from her fire. Her mother supposedly died in the fire. Batman, then Bruce Wayne pays for her and enrolls her in Gotham Academy because mostly rich kids go there. And there she kind of has a crush on Kyle Mazakuski or whatever, who's Map Mazaguski's brother. And basically, though, she ends up her mother's still alive in Arkham and is being fed drugs by Professor Crane, who's the Man-Bat. And in this issue, there's another younger Man-Bat, new character that she meets, who basically I think kind of has a little bit of a crush on her and rescues her. And it's actually been, incredibly enough, it's actually been 3 or 4 months in the story itself. It's funny you should say that because it's just occurring to me now. The story itself, Olive Silverlocks has been sort of in a coma or incapacitated. She has no memory of the last 3-4 months from the events of the last issue, and so. And she's worried that she's going crazy just like her mother did, because her mother had some kind of dementia or whatever as her mother deteriorated and became institutionalized. And so she's got fears of that. Meanwhile, Kyle is concerned about her. And meanwhile, this other new character who has a crush on her wants to make sure she's okay too. And then also there's another character that she got kicked out of, who found himself being kicked out of Gotham Academy because of her and what Kyle did in the earlier issues. I won't go into it. Suffice to say, this is still well written, and this is a better story than Hush 2, in my opinion. And anyways, I thought it was pretty good. It's unfortunate that it was delayed, but this is one that I think if it just goes 6 issues, I think it will it will be a very good and an easy read, and in keeping with the Gotham Academy is revered. It has its audience, and this character of Olive Silverlocks, we're not gonna, even after the series ends, we're not gonna see the end. We're not gonna see the end of her, and so this is. I would actually recommend. Normally, this in a weaker week, maybe this could have been in my top 5, but as it is, because of the delay, I did put this down to number 10 for me. But I did enjoy reading it.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's not that she's in a coma. She has like multiple personalities or something. Like there's something that's taken her over.
Well, she has visions. Right? That's right. That's right. She has visions, and then she seems to have another something. Yeah,
personality. Like the other. Yeah, there's this other split personality or something that's talking in this weird language and seems to take her over for weeks at a time.
Yeah,
and then disappears, and so she's like losing all this. Like I don't know. So that wasn't in the previous volumes.
That's right, but no, that wasn't. But it doesn't. But that's why this was a little bit jarring. But yet it almost feels kind of suitable because it feels like we haven't seen her in such a long time. So the 4-month break also seems almost to be meta, like it's within the story as well. Where has she been? And it's like we're experiencing. It's almost like we're experiencing the time. Where did all this time go? She's experiencing the same thing as a character, so it's kind of ironic.
Maybe they changed the script when the book got so late. Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. This book for me came in dead last. I just have no interest in it. Swamp Thing, 89, number 2, written by Rick Veitch. Veitch, I'm still not sure which is the correct way to say that. Tom Mandrake is the artist, Trish Mulvihill on colors, Todd Klein on letters. All I can say is there was a reason I wasn't reading Swamp Thing back in 1989 because it wasn't for me. It still is not for me. I don't care that this is a book that DC has brought back so Rick Veitch could finish his story that he originally intended or whatever. I just don't care. I just don't care. I will say this: they're succeeding in making it feel very 1989. With the ads, even the ad on the back for like an old Friday the 13th movie, whatever. So it feels very much of its time, which I guess if you were a fan of Swamp Thing back then, you'll be interested in this. I wasn't. It felt like a shorter read. And I don't really have anything else to add. What are your thoughts on it, Rocky?
Well, I will say I did enjoy I enjoyed this. This actually came in at number 7 for me. I thought this was I enjoyed this for what it is. None of this is actually in continuity, but you could appreciate how things would have been slightly different if it was, even in the first issue, the last issue, where we actually got an origin of the demon and we got Jesus Christ showing up and what have you. Here we got we got Chronos showing up, and we have the winged what's the guy's one of the 7 soldiers of victory, the
Shining Knight.
Shining Knight, thank you. Shining Knight is actually essentially he's relaying the story to John Constantine that he is given the Abigail, who's Swamp Thing's lover and who's pregnant with Swamp Thing's kid, wants him to send up, basically go and rescue Swamp Thing. And unfortunately, he is unsuccessful in doing so because Swamp Thing, as we know from last issue, is sort of like falling through time because of the fallout from the original crisis. Swamp Thing is basically falling through multiple time periods, and the Shining Knight fails to actually save him. Meanwhile, the big reveal at the end, I'm just cutting to the chase, is Abigail is giving birth to a child, and it's been foretold that this child, the offspring of Swamp Thing and Abigail, is going to be evil. And that's very interesting. So, once again, a lot of narration about Swamp Thing going back to the Big Bang, a lot of descriptive, a lot of metaphor, a lot of symbolism about Swamp Thing witnessing the birth of the universe but he's experiencing it sort of backwards as he goes back. And then he seemingly disappears at the end, and he tells the Shining Knight that follows him through the time stream and tries to pull him back. Says, please find Abby, tell her I'm sorry, tell her and the baby I love you, but he's cut off and he disappears. And and that's sort of how the issue ends, along with this voodoo woman. This black voodoo woman is basically telling them that this child is likely cursed, as Abby is, her contractions are 5-10 minutes apart and she's going into labor and what have you. So where this is going, I don't know, but given how impressed I was with the last issue, and I thought that was just basically a one-shot because I really enjoyed it, I'm really curious to see where this goes and to sort of speculate as to how continuity would have been different for Swamp Thing, who would go on to become because this was before the idea that, well, no, there was Alan Moore introduced the concept of the green, but it's interesting to speculate how this would have impacted. Swamp Thing had this story, these series of stories taken place and were actually published, as opposed to not being published because of the controversy.
Yeah, again, if you're a Swamp Thing fan, I guess it matters, but if you're not, I'm just like, whatever. Why is this happening? So, anyway, number of reprints this week. We've got a Dark Knight Returns, number 4, is getting a facsimile edition with some various covers. Also, DC, Marvel, Superman, Spider-Man is having its second print this week as well. So if you missed out on that, you can have a chance. There's various covers. Also, Saga of the Swamp Thing, issue number 21, is getting a facsimile reprint this week as well. In terms of collections, we've got a few of them this week. Starting with Batman Urban Legends Omnibus hardcover number 1. So this was before, what was it called? Like Streets of Gotham? I can't even remember. Oh no, it was Batman Brave and the Bold is what it was called when they were doing the Batman anthology. But previous to Batman Brave and the Bold anthology, there was another anthology, which was Batman Urban Legends, which ran for 12 issues. So this collects all 12 issues. Too many writers to list or mention. 808 pages for $100. Again, hardcover, collecting all those anthologies. So they were okay. The quality varied greatly from story to story, so it's hard to recommend. But I will recommend this Camelot 3000 trade paperback, which is an incredible story. It mixes science fiction with the legend of King Arthur. It's written by Mike W. Barr, who was a pretty prolific comic book writer for DC back in the 90s. And even more importantly than that, Brian Boland. Brian Boland, who most people know as a cover artist, he does the pencils. He does the pencils, interior pencils for this book, and it is gorgeous.
It's gorgeous,
and one of the very underrated inkers from back then during that era, late 70s through the 80s, John Costanza, handles the inking. And Tatiana Wood, who is a very talented colorist who we recently lost just earlier this year, who passed away, handles the colors. So this is a who's who of really talented. You know what? I realize Costanza's a letterer, not the inker. Sorry, my apologies, Costanza, well-known letterer who does a fantastic job. And it's actually inked by Terry Austin, who a lot of people will know from working with John Byrne back in the day. So again, this is a murderer's row of talent on this book. And it's fantastic. So if you've never read it, do yourself a favor. You can pick it up. 320 pages, collecting the entire run for only $35. Also, DC's finest format is getting a Dead Man issue, I guess you'd say. Collecting a ton of Dead Man issues, including his first appearances in Strange Adventures. That's Strange Adventures 205. I think I have a couple of copies of that.
And that's just ahead. That's just ahead of the Dead Man series from the that's the next level.
W. Maxwell Prince. Yeah, so this is collecting a ton of his stuff from the 70s in that DC's finest format. 576 pages, $40. So if you're not familiar with Dead Man, you can get familiar before the W. Maxwell Prince series drops. Also, DC's finest format is getting a Supergirl. I think this is the second Supergirl story, which collects the Peter David, a lot of the Peter David run of Supergirl. So it's late 90s into 2000s. 576 pages for $40. DC Pride, the Heart Wants hardcover, which was it won the Eisner and the Ringo and the Glad Award in 2025. So it's getting a hardcover. If you're curious, you want to check it out. 168 pages, $25. This was one that was kind of a framework that connected all the stories together, and it was pretty solid. That framework story starring Alan Scott, Green Lantern. Also, the Green Arrow run by Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino is getting a deluxe edition hardcover, 480 pages for $50. So this is collecting issues 17 through 34 of that Lemire run of which was he took over after I think it was JT Kroll that launched the
Yeah.
Green Arrow series during the New 52 era, and then when Kroll left, Lemire took over. So it collects 17 through 34, Secret Origins number 4, and Futures End number 1. So $50, hardcover, 480 pages, and then the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which is the basis for the Supergirl film coming later this year, has a new issue of the trade paperback because I think the old one's all sold out. Couldn't find it anywhere, so collects all of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, all 8 issues, 224 pages for $20 from Tom King with gorgeous art by Bilquis Evely. And then finally, speaking of Tom King, Wonder Woman Volume 4, The Island of Mice and Men trade paperback, collecting that portion of the story. Issues 22 through 28 of Tom King's current Wonder Woman run, art mostly by Daniel Sampere. We were a little critical of it. Didn't make sense. Like, why the heck was Wonder Woman taking her baby with her to this island? Why are they speaking in code? I mean, eventually it's explained. Mouse Man knows. Mice have ears. It was really inscrutable at times. But anyway, if you want to get caught up, if you're reading this in trade, that's where you can go. All right. I think it's your turn to go first for the rankings, Rocky. So lay them on us.
Yeah. Coming in at number 13 is Batman 163, Hush 2. Coming in at number 12, Harley Quinn 62. Number 11, Justice League Unlimited 19. Coming in at number 10, Gotham Academy, first year, issue 4. Coming in at number 9, Superman, Father of Tomorrow, The Elseworlds Tale by Kenny Porter. I thought it was a nice, a good addition to the Elseworlds pantheon. Coming in at number 8, Flash 33. Number 7, Swamp Thing 1989, number 2. Coming in at number 6, Green Lantern 35. My top 5 are coming in at number 5, Zatanna issue 2. I really like the new magical mythology and world that I believe Jamal Campbell is sort of crafting. Number 4, Ezra Kane mystery, Brutal Dark, and Ezra Kane mystery issue 4. I think Chris Condon's just doing a really great job crafting that story. Great character work, and the visuals are fantastic. Number 3, Absolute Wonder Woman 20. What more can be said about Kelly Thompson and Hayden Sherman? What a collaborative, arguably the best team, writer-artist team in comics. Number 2, coming in at number 2, Detective Comics 1109. And coming in at number 1 for me, Joshua Williamson, great job. Superboy Prime, that whole issue just put a smile on my face. I'm in love with Witchfire along with Superboy Prime. And the Dan Mora art was fantastic. So Superman 38 was my number 1 this week.
Interesting. That's great. All right. Swamp Thing 1989 number 2 comes in at 13 for me. Zatanna number 2 at 12. At number 11, I've got Gotham Academy first year number 4. Coming in at number 10, Batman 163, Hush 2, Part 6. At number 9, I've got Harley Quinn 62. Coming in at 8, Justice League Unlimited 19. Number 7, The Peril of the Brutal Dark and Ezra Kane Mystery number 4. Number 6, just missing my top 5, Green Lantern 35. I've got that one the same. Number 5, I've got Superman Father of Tomorrow number 1. Coming in at number 4, I've got Absolute Wonder Woman number 20. My top 3, Superman number 38 comes in at number 3 for me, which, man, I don't, this may be the first time you have a Superman issue ranked higher than me, especially being that I'm such a Prime fan, but it is what it is. Number 2, Detective Comics number 1109. And number 1, I have Flash. Again, I just went like, which would I rather read more? I just thought Ryan North did such a fantastic job. It even surprises me looking at it now that was like the one book that was left as my number 1. So pretty interesting, our rankings this week. We've got, Green Lantern is the only one we have exactly the same. but Absolute Wonder Woman. Oh, actually, I take that back. We both have. No. Yeah, that's the only one we have exactly the same. Absolute Wonder Woman, we're real close. No, we both have Detective Comics at 2 also.
Yeah.
So we did
Yeah.
it. But yeah, that Flash, we're 7 apart on Flash. I've got it 1, you've got it at 8.
Yeah.
And then we're also 7 apart on Zatanna. I've got it at 12 and you've got it at 5. Swamp Thing you liked a lot more than me. You have it at it's 7. I have it at 13. That's 6 apart. Otherwise, we're pretty close on most things. But yeah, wildly different experience for Zatanna and Flash mostly. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Appreciate you joining as always. Don't forget to go check out, learn everything there is to know about Terminal so far from Robert Kirkman and his collaborators. You know, I mentioned him collaborating with Adam Kuber and Art Adams on interiors for the first time in a long time. David Finch, who can be a little. What I didn't mention is the fact that he's co-writing that with Joe Casey. You know, I talked about maybe he's a great idea guy, but not always best at pacing and dialogue. You know, you bring in Joe Casey, you kind of solve those problems. Also, don't forget, go check out my Ultimate Impact Reborn. You want to know more about what Chris Condon's building over there at Marvel. And yeah, we really appreciate it. Hopefully, even though I'm on the road, I'll get out a few episodes this week. Obviously, we'll continue with the Daily Spawn. I've already been pre-prepping those. But anyway, we appreciate everybody joining as always. If you're listening audio only, because this is available on the Comic Source podcast feed, which is available anywhere you get your podcasts, whatever app or platform, and you want to see the art and you want to see our smiling faces, you can head over to Rocky's channel, Comic Space Boom! On YouTube. That's where this comes out every week, usually pretty late on Tuesday, unless life intervenes. But once you're there, like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell when you know new content comes out. And as long as you're on YouTube, might as well head over and do the same for the Comic Source YouTube channel as well. So again, appreciate the support, everybody. Know it was a bigger week. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you later.